Welcome class to your Chapter 6 lecture video, Positioning Objects with CSS and Tables. Chapter 6 objectives: create a page using a fluid grid layout, add and position divs, add content to divs, create a table, resize, split, and merge cells, insert and align images in table cells, and insert text and format cell content. So we'll begin on pages 6-6 and 6-7, where it says create a page with a fluid grid layout. Now, between the version of what this book was written for, which was 2015, and the current version we have with 2017, what has happened is these fluid grid layouts is what has been declared what they call legacy. Legacy simply meaning really not recommended to use and not offered anymore. So what's happened in 2017 is that we don't even have the option to create a fluid grid layout through the file and then new option on the file menu. So what I decided to do was just to give you a starter file that replaces pages 6-6 and 6-7. The other alternate idea would be to teach you how to use Bootstrap, but then I'd have to replace all the rest of the content of the chapter. So I'm going to give you the starter files and then we'll go from there. So in the starter files are in the doc sharing tab, and they're for each website. So I'll go ahead and download Cafe. Currently Cafe, if we were to look at it in Striped Umbrella, is just a blank page. So no worries that you're going to save over anything that you're not supposed to be saving over. So I'll make sure I'm in the right folder. I want to replace it. And so when I go back to look at it in Dreamweaver, this is what I get. So we've got that little background that we've been using with Striped Umbrella. And the reason all of that is there is because of SU_styles. So that is in the head section. So you want to make sure both of these show up exactly like that. And if we look at the body section, we can see that we have two divs. One is this container here, and the other one is the actual container here, I should say. The first one is kind of controlling the entire page, and this one is just an individual like box within that big container that's enclosing the entire page. So we're going to work off of this and add divs and add footers and add headers and add navs, and we'll build a page from scratch. Now this code that is going to develop as we go along, you can, when you're all done, go ahead and compare it to Index, for example, and you will see that it's structured the exact same way. So we've been doing this all along. We're just going to do it from scratch. So lesson 2 is about adding and positioning divs. So I'm going to start on page 11, where in the directions it tells us to rename div 1 to content. Now the reason we do that is again to match up what we have already styled in SU_styles. Now I'll try to work in live view, but sometimes live view isn't very friendly, so I might toggle back into design view. It says in code view, select the placeholder text in the content div. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that when you select this that you don't accidentally grab part of the actual tag. So it's just the black text. We're going to go ahead and remove that. I'm going to enter that down just for code formatting. And then what they want us to do is insert a header. So I'll go ahead and click on header through the insert panel. And it's in the HTML category. Remember, we don't have a structure category. And we're going to type in fluid. We're going to prefix everything in the book that has a class with fluid and then that actual class name. So this is number 5 on page 11. Now once I do that, my banner comes in, and then all I want to do is go ahead and remove the default text that comes along with inserting that header. Now the reason the banner comes in again is because we have the su_styles.css file attached. 7 and 8 on page 12 talks about the element quick view button. The replacement for that in 2015 and 2017 versions is the DOM panel, and it's just a way for you to see the hierarchy of your document. So if I click on any of these, I can see if they expand, and I can collapse them, and so on and so forth. So as your page becomes a little bit more complex, you can use this as a graphical way to see how things are structured. Page 13, we're going to add in an additional div that is going to be our intro paragraph. So underneath header, we're going to add in a div through the insert panel, fluid, and in this case they want us to say intro underscore paragraph. And you'll see content for class fluid intro paragraph goes here. Now they want us to open up the index page and then go ahead and copy our menu system that we created in chapter 5 into this page. So I'll go ahead and do that. So scrolling down in my code, I want to find my opening nav tag to my closing nav tag. Now they say P to P, I just say nav to nav. You can do either way. So before or after my closing header tag, I'm going to paste my navigation in. And then I'm going to line up my code a little better so I can tab this in. I could use the space bar, or you can click on this button and customize your toolbar for coding options. And here's the indent code. This one needs to be moved over a little bit. Let's see where I'm at with my layout here. Indent this over. This is just the programmer in me that has to have everything lined up. Okay. So now you can see that the navigation is up here, and then here's our fluid intro paragraph that will eventually put some text in. Anything that has to do with fluid grid layout guides, ignore. Okay, so that's like step 3 on page 13. Okay, so step 6 on page 14, we're going to go ahead and insert a footer at the bottom of the page. And so you want to be very almost meticulous when it comes to these directions, that you know exactly where you're inserting things. So number 6 says place the insertion point before the last 2 ending div tags. So we want to be here, and then we'll come in insert, and we're going to insert a footer. So again, fluid. In this case, it's footer underscore div. Okay, so now we can see we have our footer looking much like the pages we have seen so far with Striped Umbrella. Number 8, it says place the insertion point in front of the opening footer tag. I'm going to go ahead and enter down. We're going to enter a div in. It's going to be fluid image underscore div. Okay, so now we have another box that we can put information in. Now steps 11 and 12 just talk about the font that is with the menu bar. The reason we've lost the nice formatted font of Sago is because the nav is outside of intro paragraph. So we just go back to our CSS Designers panel, and we just set that up for menu bar. So let me go ahead and get my Designers panel formatted. So SU styles and global, and then menu bar, and we give it a text, category, font family of Sago, and then notice that our font has been updated. Adding content to divs is lesson 3. So we will work on pages 18 through 21 with adding content. So number 1, with the cafe page open in design view, so let's go into design view. Go ahead and collapse this panel here a bit. Delete the placeholder text in the intro paragraph div. So we can use design view to select. You just want to make sure that when you look at the code that it's not grabbing any tags. And then it says to open cafe.txt. We want to select this paragraph, copy it, paste it into our intro paragraph. Okay, so you'll notice that there's no paragraph tag wrapping around it, so I'm going to put an opening P and then a closing P tag right after the period after the text 55. Number 3 says go ahead and close the cafe text, and then it talks about those paragraph tags. 4, open the index page, copy the 2 lines of text in the footer, and then paste them in the footer on the cafe page. So we've got index open. Let's come down here and copy these lines. Now what happens is if you copy them in design view, you don't get the span tag that comes with it. So go into code view, either split or just code view, and go ahead and copy. Let's see if I can get back into design view here. Yeah, it's not grabbing it. So we'll go span to closing span. I'm going to copy and then come back to cafe and delete my placeholder text for my footer and paste in my span. So now when I look at my footer, it should have my updated information, the same that it is for index. Okay, page 19, placing the insertion point in the image div, then carefully delete the placeholder text. So again, you can select it in design view, just make sure they don't grab any tags or parts of tags. Go ahead and delete, and then we're going to go ahead and click on the image, and we're going to navigate to our data files, and we want to bring in Clubhouse Oceanside. And if we scroll down in our design view, we can see Clubhouse Oceanside. Now you can either use the properties inspector or your code view here. Add some alternate text. Now I don't believe in the directions they talk about that at all, so I'm just going to say Clubhouse Oceanside. You always want to have alternate text, and good alternate text on every image. So file and then save, and then it tells us to look in different views. So I always choose the iPhone for global. I've set up one for tablet, and this is based off the numbers that is used in the media query. You can do that through edit sizes, and when you do edit sizes you're allowed to add, and I just did 481 to height of 732, and then I just give it a name. So I'm going to go ahead and test that there so I can see what it looks like in a tablet. And then I'm going to go back to full size. You can use other sizes as well for testing the desktop view. Now I need you to skip pages 20 and 21 because we're not going to do any reordering, and this fluid grid layout, guys, it's not available to us for use in our versions that we have of Dreamweaver. So we'll jump into lesson 4, create a table. Now back in chapter 4, I believe it was, I had you do a class discussion on when you should use tables and when you shouldn't. So should you use tables for page layout? And you probably came to the summary of you should use tables but only use them for tabular type of data. And that's what we're going to do in this section in lesson 4. We're going to use just to set up some tabular data that would be on a web page, but not necessarily for the entire web page itself. So page 6-24, we're still in Cafe. It says place the insertion point in the intro paragraph div, switch to code view, and then place the insertion point after the ending div for the intro paragraph. So right here between the image div and your intro div is where you want your cursor to be. And then we'll go ahead and insert a new div with the class of, sorry, why do I keep, we'll do fluid instead of class, and then table underscore div. Okay, and so then we see our placeholder text. It says carefully delete that placeholder text. and then we're going to insert a table. So through your insert panel, click on table. Now mine is set up exactly how it's specified in figure 31 because I've done this process before. So you just want to make sure your rows are 5, columns are 3, that you don't have anything specified for width, for border thickness, for cell padding, cell spacing, and that you use the header of top. And then the caption is the Sand Crab Cafe hours. Now the summary would be something you would put there for accessibility, so that if this page was read to someone with a screen reader, that summary would be read to them. So we could put something in here. The table describes the hours for the Sand Crab Cafe. Okay, so again, for accessibility reasons there. I'll go ahead and click on OK. Now if I scroll down in my design view, I can see what my table looks like, and it looks really bad. Okay, there is no width specified for this table, and there's no content in it, so it totally collapses, and that's normal. So don't worry about it. We'll go ahead and get that fixed up. So on page 25, we're going to actually specify a width. So using our CSS Designers panel, we're going to create a new selector. I always like to scroll down to the bottom of my list, select the last one, and then enter in the next one. And I think nope, not this one. So just table, and then we've got a width of 80%. So watch the background happen here. So now it's 80% of the width of the parent element, and then block is the display. Now as soon as I adjust these margins, we're going to start seeing centering. Anytime you have a left and right margin of auto, it automatically centers it. And then font family, you're going to have to go. So the font family actually adjusted the caption of the table. So 80%, you can see probably about what, 10% over here, 10% over here, and we've got 100%. Now you're going to see funny things happen with the table through the rest of the chapter. Do not panic. Do never panic when you're developing a table, because it will always turn out, okay? I promise. If it doesn't, you can email me. Okay, resize, split, and merge cells, which is lesson 5. So we're going to set up a little bit of formatting for this table before we actually start adding content. So on page 28, it says place the insertion point inside the first cell in the last row. So first cell in the last row. And then you want to actually select the TD tag in the bottom where your tag selector is at. When you see that, you should see it be selected in your code view. Now in 2015 version, this would kind of turn a turquoise color. This is what it looks like in 2017. Now we want to take this cell and we want to split it into 2 rows. So we'll use our properties inspector to go about doing that. So whenever you have a cell selected, you used to be your cell options. Over in the bottom left corner, you will see what we have splitting, and then this one is merging. So if you're merging, you're going to have more than one cell selected. If you're splitting, you're going to have only one cell selected. So we'll go ahead and split, and we want to split it into 2 rows. And now you can see that that particular cell is now 2 rows. So the first, let's see here, table row, I'm trying to see how this code works out here. Yep. This is the first cell, and then these last 2 cells in this table row span over these 2 rows. That's how that code is read. And then you can see the last row only has this cell. That's how the code reads. Okay, merging cells, we want to select the very top row and we want to merge those cells. So we're going to put a table header up there. And so it's the opposite effect. You select more than one cell and you go ahead and click on the merge button. And in this case, or maybe we're not adding text at this point. So let's look at the code behind that one. It says right here, th call span equal 3. And that's exactly what this cell is doing. It's going over 3 cells. Now lastly, and don't forget to do this step on page 29, number 4. So you want to select cells 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are in the left column, the leftmost column, and you want to merge them. Okay, so when you're all done, your table should look like figure 39. I believe it is figure 39 on page 32, without the image, of course. Okay, and resolution's a little different, and we know that, of course. So it says place the insertion point in the merged cells in the left column of the table. So now we're going to start actually putting in content into these table cells, and this is where the table is going to start to jump around, but again, do not panic with this. So we're going to insert an image. And this one is shrimp bisque. Okay, give it the alternate text of Gulf shrimp bisque. Okay, and then once I click either outside of my table or sometimes when I click inside of my table, things adjust, and they may not adjust perfectly, but that's what they do. Okay, and by the time we're all done, we'll have a beautiful table. So it says select shrimp bisque image. So when we have something selected and then we use the CSS Designers panel, which I must have closed out, yep. Then we get that automatic selector. So SU Styles Global and then click on the plus, and so it's automatically set to what we have selected, TR, TD, and image. So we're setting up styles for that particular image that's stored in that cell of that row. Okay, and it could be any image in any of these cells in this table, okay, or any table for that matter, the way that selector is stated. So again, I want you to watch how this image changes as you add your styles. So we've got a width of 80%. Okay, so setting up to be just 80% in the size. Okay. Display of block. Images are defaulted to inline, and you don't need to know the difference between block and inline. If you want to know, let me know. Okay, and then we have auto, which is going to center. So if we do both of these, we've got a centered image within our cell. Okay, so and again, don't freak out if your table does whatever. Insert text. Place the insertion point to the cell below the bisque image and type Gulf shrimp, shift enter, and then put bisque in. Okay. Place the insertion point to the top row of the table and type in our dining hours are listed below. Now the reason that that is bolded and it's automatically centered is because when we created the table, we said top header, and that meant that our cells in our first row were to be of header type. Number 3 on page 35 says merge the two bottom right cells in the last row. So these two bottom ones, we want to go ahead and merge them together using the Properties Inspector. Okay, continuing on to page 36, format cell content. So now we're going to create a new global selector, SU Styles Global, and this one is going to be called feature, class of feature underscore item. So feature underscore item is going to have the color of so kind of a dark gray. Font family is going to be Lobster 2. Now if you do not have Lobster 2 in your list, you're going to click on Manage Fonts, you click on Header, and then you'll see Lobster 2, you add it, and then you have to go back and actually select it. So Lobster 2, so we can see changes. We'll see changes once we actually apply this one. So font style of italic, font weight 400, and font size of large. So if we click on Show Set, those are our 5 properties. Now here's the key, because this is the one that usually I get an email on and it didn't work correctly. So step number 3 on page 6-36. It says select golf shrimp bisque under the bisque image, okay, and then select and apply the feature item rule. So here's what you need to do. You do not do this and then apply it. That's applying it just to the text. We want to apply it to the actual cell so that it formats everything in that cell. So to do that, you click inside the cell, click on the TD tag in the tag selector, and then go to class and click on feature item. Okay? Otherwise, sometimes it shifts the table just wrong just because feature item had just the way it lays out. It messes with the table. So just make sure you do that step that way. And actually we end up adding a percentage on that, which is 25%, and that's the reason why. So we're going to go back on page 37 and update feature item to have a text align of center and the layout of 25%. Now you can see beautifully it's being applied. Okay. Page 38, modify table text for different device. So this is where we're going to go into code view, and we are going to copy what we have set up this far for table. So in SU styles, I'm going to go right into code view so I can have a bigger view of this. And if you can't find things, just Control F and type in what you're looking for. So table, this is what I want to copy. And I want to copy it to the tablet section. So before that closing media query tag, and then down at the bottom for desktop. So again, before the closing media query. And then it says in number 3, use the CSS Designers panel. So now we're going to go back to our CSS Designer. You make sure you're on source code, not on the CSS file, before you go to CSS Designer. And then we're going to click on Global, Table. We're going to add a font size in. And number 3 says small. Then we're going to go to Tablet, Table. And we're going to do a font size again of small. Then we're going to go to Desktop of Table. And we're going to change our font size to be medium. Okay, so that is page 38. Modify cell content. Place the insertion point after the word bisque. I'll get back into my split view here. And after the word bisque in the bottom left cell, and press tab. Now I could be in this cell as well. Any cell within this last row, and if I hit tab it's going to add an additional row. So what we want to do is we want to merge these two cells. And then we're going to insert a horizontal rule, so kind of like a divider between the table and the image, and then we'll have one on top as well. So in your insert panel, HTML category, scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see horizontal rule. And then if we scroll up and come right before our dining hours are listed below, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So now we have a horizontal rule above and a horizontal rule below the table. Page 40 takes us back into testing. So we need to test, how does this look in all of the different views? If you get this, just go ahead and say update. That's to do with that lobster too. So I'll go ahead and save all here, and then I'm going to go ahead and view. So this is what it looks like in a phone. Hey, I haven't entered my data in yet. Been kind of lazy. Hey, follow the directions on page. I'm wondering where I missed to put the data in at. back a few pages. Page 35 in number 3 says, merge the 2 bottom right cells in the last row and then enter the cafe dining area name and hours. So let me go back to my full size and get my data entered in there. So you might see your table jump around as you go about doing this, especially if you do it in order of the directions in the book. Oh, beach 25. So shift enter between those 2 lines. There we go. So let's go ahead and go to the phone. Doesn't display too bad at all. And then let's go into the tablet. Again, a pretty good display. And then I'm going to go ahead and push it bigger so we can see what it would look like on a larger monitor resolution. Okay, so back to where I was at. That is page 40. The last step that we need to do is validate our HTML5 markup. Now, I don't bring a lot of focus in this class in Dreamweaver to making sure our pages validate nicely, but since we created a new page from total scratch, it totally makes sense to validate this file. So it's through the File menu. I'll go ahead and save all here first, and then Validate, and then Current Document W3C. So it says Dreamweaver will now send your document to the W3C service for validation. And I'll go ahead and click on OK, and then it'll come back. And this one is saying, what does it say here? The summary attribute on the table element is obsolete. Consider describing. So I have learned something today that is considered obsolete. So I could go ahead and just remove that, maybe investigate it more as to what the replacement for that is. So let's see here, can I find where my summary is at? There it is, table summary. So I could go ahead and just remove that. Oh, don't want to remove the table tag, just summary. So I just have the table tag, and then if I go ahead and current document, click OK, that error goes away. So you shouldn't have any errors. You can go ahead and leave that summary off. So that is Striped Umbrella. Test it out in global, tablet, and in a browser. And then we talk about Blooms and TripSmart. So remember that all of the files here, our starter files, are listed here. Now I've modified the directions to correspond to what is necessary. So all of the fluid stuff that was mentioned is all here. Blooms and bulbs, and go ahead and just print this out, and as you're going through, just make sure that you're working with these directions and that you're making sure that you're prefixing things with fluid and so on down the line. Same thing with TripSmart. Now TripSmart gives you more freedom. Again, make sure you use fluid. Make sure you're using the common naming convention as intro underscore paragraph or header underscore div or footer underscore div, things that we practiced out through the chapter. Now as far as coffee shop is concerned, I'll give you a couple of options of how about going about the directions. You can certainly use, and there's a CS template in the doc sharing tab, you can certainly use that as a starter file for a new page. but you're welcome to use other pages that you've already created as your template as well. So either way, but just go ahead and create a new page. Make sure that you're using tables, so some sort of a table to lay out some data. And I'll actually put that here in the directions so that no one forgets to do that. So it says add text, background images, or background colors. Create the navigation links, so make sure that you copy your current navigation structure to this brand new page. And add images in the containers where appropriate, but I'm going to require that, the one thing I'm going to require is that you use a table in this chapter. So if you have any questions with regards to any of these 4 websites, please let me know, and make sure that you don't forget to complete chapters 5 and 6 tests. Thank you.